What we do in Folks That Will is we're about creating a mood, a feeling, a vibe. It's music for your non-conscious mind.
ADHD Rewired, episode 394. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups, and you can learn all about our intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. You can do all of this at our website, ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today we are talking to the CEO, the founder of Focus at Will. So Will Henshall is a Los Angeles-based tech entrepreneur, inventor, and music producer. He is the founding member of the 90s hit UK pop soul band, LONDONBEAT. This might sound familiar. Hopefully that was short enough that YouTube doesn't flag it for copyright infringement. I'm on the show with the guy. All right, so that's been your huge international hit song. You reached number one in the Billboard charts in the 90s. Let's see. You are out of San Francisco. You founded a tech company called Rocket Network. You created DigiDelivery media transfer system, which is now part of Avid ProTools. This is just for all the audio nerds. For everyone else, don't worry about it. And then you have most recently your project. Well, when did you start Focus at Will?
Started about 10 years ago in 2011.
All right. So if you have not heard of Focus at Will, I'm just going to cue something up here. And it is music to work to concentrate to, and whatever kind of works for you. I really like the deep. I'm really into the lo-fi kind of stuff for work, but there are all kinds of different of music that is based in science. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of your process for both recording, for studying to see the effectiveness of this. So let's see. Oh, you got some patents. You got some. So he's just a general ADHD entrepreneur that keeps coming up with new stuff to do.
I don't. Yeah. Anybody that says being ADHD is a disorder has no idea. It's an incredible advantage.
It's interesting that you say that. So I am actually in the camp of, it's like, I don't know if I would call it a superpower. I think that it has gifts that come with it if you know how to leverage them. But I also think that if this is such a gift, right, then why are the insurance companies that we want to pay for our treatments and medications going to do that?
Yeah. I think, I too, of course, just bears saying, I've been diagnosed as ADHD myself, and I've always figured out ways to not medicate, but to mitigate and to work in ways that enhance the way my brain works. And so if what I found before, neurodiversity is the beauty of us as the human race, right? We're all different. And things that I thought were normal that everybody else did as a kid growing up, I'd be like, you mean you don't have like 3 radio stations on at the same time, and then every half an hour you need to go out and run around the yard so you can come back and work? Really?
Did you grow up in a family with parents or siblings with ADHD?
Yeah.
That sounds like that might have been a loaded question.
Yeah. I mean, there are different degrees of what we call ADHD, right? The way that we look at it here in the Folks at Will Lab is just that. if someone has attention challenges, if you look at that in the sort of an overview as the general public, it just means they need to have more stimulation happening in their environment for them to be able to concentrate. That's it. And so that led me to Focus at Will, and to, as I know a lot about audio and the way that the brain works with audio. And then I'd noticed there's a link, which is very counterintuitive, with people who have difficulty focusing, right? In other words, people with attention challenges, and the kind of music they actually listen to when they're working. And a lot of the people, I've heard this many times where people say, oh, my son's super ADD, and so we play him classical music to help him study. I'm like, oh no, that's not going to work at all. No, because, well, it depends if he's on medication, actually being serious about it. But if he's not on that much medication, he needs things happening in his environment that are really stimulating so he can then focus on the single thing that he wants to do.
I know for myself, I have found it, like, it's a big, it depends on, like, it depends on what I'm doing. It depends on kind of where my brain is that day. It depends on the kind of music. But it very much depends. And I think that also as a musician, you start to hear different types of things in music, which can, be wonderful, but it could also be distracting sometimes when you're, paying attention to the music and not like what you're
vocals.
Yeah. Right? Oh yeah.
In Focus at Will, no vocals ever. Anything that sounds like vocal, never. Right.
Now, what about, have you ever looked at like stuff that, I love vocal harmony. It's one of the most like pleasant, like to my ears and brain kind of sounds. Is occasionally I will look up like folk music that's in another language, so I can't actually understand the lyrics, and sometimes that can work for me.
Again, there's no rules here.
Right.
I want to ask you a personal question you may or may not want to answer, and that is, if you're on medication, have you noticed that the kind of music that works for you is different than if you're not on medication?
So, well, let me first describe when it comes to like using music as a tool for focus.
Right.
So if I'm doing any kind of writing, I find that, or even just like administrative stuff where I need to, be thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I do really well with either lo-fi beats,
right,
or putting on like a live Fish show, which is like, Fish is my favorite band.
Uh-huh.
But I've heard these songs so many times that it's like, it becomes sort of like background music that I'm like sort of paying attention to, but not. When it comes to actually doing like housework, if I put on some good high energy music, like it speeds up my housework profoundly. Like if I'm stuck on the couch, put on something that's got a good beat and I'm up and I'm working. If not, I am stuck on the couch. It's almost like my ignition switch through music.
Right. Yeah, we humans are, people think we're visual creatures, visual animals, but we're actually not. If you think that we only have 120 degrees of vision, and so as I'm sitting here talking to you here in my office, I can only see evolutionarily my safety is I'm holding my hands by my sides. I can't see my hands. So my hearing is looking out for my safety. So we're actually audio driven. And if you look in the brain, if you look at the way the brain is actually physically wired, not the physiology of the brain, but if you look at the psychophysiology of the brain, which is where all the things are triggering, you can see that a lot more neurons are firing when you're hearing something than they are when you're seeing something, which is super interesting. So we live in these audio worlds, and music has a special role within audio. Of course, audio is all sounds, but music has this rhythmic and this thing, and it's an international human language. Mm-hmm. And we've done some research in the Focus at Will lab that looks at where in the brain do you hear music? And there are 3 levels of the brain, right? There's the limbic system, which is the so-called reptile brain. Then there's the central system, which is the kind of the central station that figures out where to put the information. Then there's the consciousness at the front of your brain. Here I'm simplifying this enormously. But music is enjoyed by and is felt by the feeling part, which is almost instant. So when you hear a piece of music, you just have this visceral response to it, which is why we like music. You don't even think about it. And if I say to you, hey, thinking about you, do you remember that? It'll go bang and you'll hear it and you'll feel what you feel. And then 200 milliseconds later, right? 200 milliseconds later, typically, then you'll know what you think about it. And so the thing you're talking about is the way that music has this kind of hidden hand on your steering wheel. Now, I asked you about meds and music because we have found that this wasn't a study we did. This has just come from multiple messages from users. They have found that when they're on medication, just standard ADHD medication, stimulants of some kind, the type of music that they listen to that helps them focus is different than when they're not on medication. And that was very, very interesting. Here's an example. Like you, for instance, I was saying earlier that, is it The Drop? That was the channel that you were using, right? This channel.
No, it was The Deep. I like The Deep.
So here's The Deep. This is the lo-fi stuff. We have found that people who are on their ADD medication, this works well. But if they are not on the medication or they've taken less for some reason, they find that something like this really helps. I'll just fade that down, which is fascinating. So the question is the music intensity having the same effect as the way that the meds speed up your clock in your brain? And we think that there's a link.
I don't know. It's an interesting thing to explore. I know I immediately when I hear that particular channel, I'm like, where's the back button? Get me off of this channel as quickly as possible.
5% of our users listen to that channel.
Oh my gosh.
For real.
Oh, and I believe it. It's
like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, music is so individually. It's like you can't judge taste, right? It's you like what you like.
But you're also a musician, aren't you?
Yes.
So we have done other research in folks that has shown about 10% of the population are musicians or have some musical talent. And when you're a musician, there's a part of your brain, which is here at the front of the brain, which is to do with anticipation. Part of the reason that you and I are both musicians, and part of the reason that we can do what we do is you're able to, in my case, play the guitar, and I will have a really good idea when the next beat is coming and probably what the next chord is if we're playing together, right? So when you listen to music and you're a musician, this part of your brain, which is anticipation, is always going on. You can't turn it off. You're in a supermarket and you hear, it's a nice day for a, you'll probably go white wedding and know what the chord is. Right?
Nice.
So as a musician, you have slightly different brain pattern. The way it works is different than it is for someone who is not a musician. And remember, 90% of the population are not.
Yeah.
So you, like me, we're kind of similar. We're ADHD musicians.
And creators, right? I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah.
It's when we think about just the idea of strategies that, like, when I'm in my coaching groups and people are like, well, what should I do? It's like, I always tell people there's no prescriptive solution for anything. Like, no. You got to try stuff out, right? Like,
everybody's brain is different. We're individual aspects of the divine. Literally.
I probably a decade ago, I read Oliver Sacks' book, Musicophilia. And one of the things that I recall reading from that book is that part of why music works so well for so many different things is because there actually is no music part of the brain. Our entire brain is encoded to respond and process music, which is kind of fascinating. Like, it's completely wired. There's not necessarily a central location for processing the music. Maybe there is for like the processing the emotion of music, but this idea that like it's so like, you know, if you look at music sort of therapy as the different types of interventions. And I used to work with kids with autism who couldn't speak and put a song that they were familiar with and overlay that over conversation language. And now they can have conversation, be a little bit scripted, using it over like a simple a melody. Or people who can't walk, maybe due to a stroke or something, but if they have a beat they can listen to, they can actually engage the brain that can get the rhythm of walking. Right. Yeah. So this, I mean, I think that alone just shows how the power that music has the potential to do. And, you know, I think it's when it comes to this kind of stuff, try it. You really got nothing to lose. You try it.
A friend of mine in the UK told me a fascinating story related to this, that one of his relatives has Alzheimer's and is in the very final stages of this disease. So she's kind of bedridden, it's heartbreaking. You know, you walk in and she has no idea who you are. And they discovered that if they play some of her favorite disco tunes from back in the day, nice. It's terrifying. She leaps up in bed, celebration, Kool and the Gang. And she is like dancing and smiling. And then they turn the song off and she goes back to the comatose state.
Wow. Yeah. Wow is right. Wow is right.
Yeah. Tell me about the power of music.
So, you know, there's the experiential part of music, but what you are doing is you're saying that here is this engineered music that we believe will help people increase their focus and attentiveness and doing the work that they do. So what I want to do really quickly is take a quick break. I want to, when we come back, get into the science of kind of how you've been creating this, how you've been studying this, because we know there's a lot of woo-woo BS out there when it comes to ADHD. So let's explore the science and how you've been studying this. And we are transitioning to the break, listening to the medium energy channel of The Deep. And we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from our award-winning online video-based coaching and accountability groups, also known as ARC, a 10-week intensive program to help adults with ADHD get their ADHD rewired. Congratulations to all the members of ARC 25. We look forward to seeing you in the alumni community. Thank you to all of our upcoming coaching group members and our alumni members who make this amazing community what it is, a safe space and a safe place for continued growth and continued support. We wouldn't be here without you, and this community wouldn't exist without you. So thank you. Our fall sessions are now completely full. Thank you to everyone who attended our registration events. We look forward to seeing all of you who signed up on October 6th. If you missed signing up, we are forming a waitlist. More information about joining the waitlist can be found at our website at coachingrewired.com. It's never too early to start planning ahead to 2022. Get your name added to our winter coaching group interest list by going to coachingrewired.com and clicking that purplish blue, I think it's periwinkle is the actual color. Click that button there at the top, add your name to the list, and make sure to confirm your email so you get notified when we start registration. If there's one thing that we can promise at the end of the 10 weeks, it's that you're still going to have ADHD. But that doesn't mean the support stops there. With over 700 adults with ADHD having gone through this coaching group, the community of growth-minded people who really do understand will be there for you. So with 10 weeks of coaching beside other adults with ADHD and even more support afterwards sounds like something you want to add to your ADHD toolbox, head on over now to coachingrewired.com and add your name to the winter interest list. Even if you added your name to our previous interest list, you do need to add your name to our current interest list for the upcoming winter sessions. That's ADHDrewired.com. If you like ADHD Rewired, then be sure to check out all of our other shows that we have here on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. There's a little something for everyone. Whether you're new to the show or you've been listening for a while, but you haven't had a chance to check out the other shows on the network, go to ADHDrewired.com/podcast network to see all of our other podcasts. For tips, strategies, and really satisfying dad jokes in 20 minutes or less, check out Hacking Your ADHD with Will Curb. If you are a parent with ADHD or have an ADHD household, ADHD Essentials with Brendan Mahan is a great resource for parents and educators. Or a personal audio journal sharing her ADHD experiences as an Asian Canadian. Check out the ADHD Diversified podcast with MJ Siemens. And if you are a late diagnosed woman who is curious about how hormones affect your ADHD, then check out the ADHD Friendly Lifestyle with ADHD Rewired coach Moira Mabin. And it is still in the works because it wouldn't be an ADHD podcast network without a few hiccups and delays here and there. But keep an eye out as Will Curb of Hacking Your ADHD and ADHD Rewired coach extraordinaire Roxy Martin team up to launch their new show called Wait, what was the question? It's the show where you get to ask your ADHD related questions as Will and Roxy hash out some of their thoughts and share some of their favorite solutions to answer your questions. And did you know that you can meet all of us once a month for our live Q&A that happens every second Tuesday of the month at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Central. If you don't want to miss it and want to ask your ADHD related questions live, then go to ADHDrewired.com/events to register so you can join us on Zoom. Check out all of our podcasts from Will, Brendan, Moira, MJ, and soon-to-be podcaster Roxy. And we'd love it if you could leave a rating and review for our shows. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes when they are released. A huge thank you from all of us for listening, subscribing, reviewing, and sharing all of our podcasts with the ADHD community. And don't forget, you can join our monthly Q&A and check out all of our other podcasts all at our website by going to ADHDrewired.com/events for our live Q&A and ADHDrewired.com/podcast network to see all of our podcasts. We really are grateful for all of you who listen. Thanks. All right, and we are back. All right, so Will, talk to me about sort of the creation process, and then how have you studied to be able to say that this helps people focus? Well, like, how did you take the data, and how, like, what does the data say that you've collected?
Well, I'll answer that question first.
Okay,
we have 2 million plus users, and I have a business. This clearly works. Right?
Yeah.
Experientially, this works. Now, there are multiple genres of music in the system. And the key to why this works is we have found that there is a causal link between your brain type and the kind of music that you need to listen to. And in fact, if anyone's listening to this, if you just go to focusatwill.com, there's a quiz on the homepage that you can just use. And it has an 80% accuracy in predicting which kind of music will likely work for you. And we have found that people who take that, who become users and subscribers of the system, 85% of them stay with what they're recommended. And if it's not working for you, you're never going to use it, right? Mm-hmm. So the key is, as I said, that and it's interesting, we call it internally, it's a distractibility scale.
Okay.
And when I'm talking to people who are not experts in this, I say, well, just imagine this. You've got the Dalai Lama, someone who's really chill all the time, a monk on the left side, someone who meditates, who could probably meditate standing up in the middle of the median on the freeway. This is how focused that person can be. And then at the other end, you've got people who are increasingly find it hard to concentrate. And then at the far end, I like to tell people, well, we got Elon Musk. I mean, I don't know this gentleman personally, but just observing, he's a defines, neuroatypical genius, right? And so then you have people who are very easily distracted. It just means they need a lot of stimulation in their life to be able to focus on something. Now, Dr. Edward Hallowell is one of my science advisors, and I know we talked before, you know him. And Ned told me something that had me going. He was the one that gave me the ADHD diagnosis when we met 10 years ago. And everything kind of fell into place. And he said, there are some jobs that people do where being easily distracted and needing a lot of stimulation to be able to focus on work when you're doing is actually a critical thing. And he said, what about a battlefield surgeon, right? What about any kind of first responder work? I don't know if you've noticed, if you've ever been at a scene of an accident and the cops show up, they are always like, oh, incredibly calm.
Yep, calm and focused. I mean, when I used to work in residential where I was constantly in crisis, right? Like that was like my time to shine, right? Like I was calm, like, you know, it was like kids like throwing furniture and I'm totally calm, you know, like supporting kids, giving directions. It was when I had to like complete the paperwork afterwards for those. Oh, I think there's like a twister outside right now.
Oh, really?
I was like, what is that? What is going on? I'm like, it's like dark out there and it's like 2:00. Oh, that's fun.
You okay?
Oh, yeah. For now.
Well, as we were saying, distraction. And then you're... So what about other jobs such as, you know, like second grade teacher? That's, you know, chaos, as you were saying, in residential work. And then you think about other work, sort of politicians of any type. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So there are some jobs where this is a real advantage.
Yeah.
And there is a link between the kind of music that you listen to and the more, ironically, that it's as simple as this, that the more easily distracted you are, for most people, the more audio energy you need. And if it's okay with you, I will play something that's, if you are on the sort of the not distracted at all end, you might be able to listen to this. The Dalai Lama. This is maybe someone who can meditate anywhere, or something like this. It's very ambient. But if you are more and more on the scale towards being distracted, here's the deep, which is what works well for you. I'm going to play a little bit of a little more energy. This is something called a drop. And then our most successful channel on the system is called Nature Beat.
Ooh,
and it's somewhere between all of those. Check it out if you didn't.
I like the sense. I like that.
And this has bird sounds in it.
It's interesting because normally you hear bird sounds over very like spacious like synthesizer.
And we have found that the way these bird sounds work is they are organic, that they are always changing.
So
and what they're
random.
doing, right? And so your non-conscious attention, which is what this would be in the background, is going to pay the music attention, but the randomness in the sounds means that your non-conscious attention is paying particular attention to it, which means that the you, which is you doing the work now or concentrating on what you're trying to do, is not distracted by thoughts or other things around you. Now, I'll just finish this off by saying we have a channel, I played a burst of this earlier on, which is called Power Tool. And 5% of our users listen to this. This is just warming up.
Oh my God.
It's really interesting how even within the ADHD community, there is significant diversity, neurodiversity.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there are some people listening to that think that was really cool and they want to go check it out. When I was listening to that, I was like, I think a minute of this would turn me into like a murderous rampage. Like,
it off. Eric, we got it. The button is closed.
If I say I'm highly impacted by music, I think I'm like, oh my God, like what? Please make it stop. Like I'm a nice person. This music is going to do something to me.
So your question was, how did we get here?
Yes.
Well, we were initially investors. Our initial investors were Singularity University, 500 startup, Silicon Valley.
Okay.
Invest 500. Singularity University is Google funded, so it comes from that science background. And with their help, when we started this company nearly 10 years ago, we set up a lab. And we have investments from Thought Technology, who run EEG, EKG machines. And we spent a lot of time and money putting people in labs, listening to all kinds of things, and then testing them on standard cognitive tests. That's how this started. And we initially were able to find some signal in the noise and to find out that there is this link between the amount of energy and what your brain type is. We use a variation on the Big Five model.
Okay. Personality type.
Myers-Briggs,
Yeah.
The ocean score it's called. And we did a very large scale. We had 25,000 participants in one of the research projects, which was a huge amount of people. And we looked at which channels they listened to over a multi-year period. And then we looked at what their ocean scores were with these. It's a sort of an adopted ocean score. And we found there is a very distinct link. The data from that then went into building the tool that is on the webpage that is able to recommend a channel for you. There's a couple of other things about the system. First of all, there's no vocals. We have found that any kind of, even in another language, is distracting for most people.
Because I've heard vocals, from a very evolutionary standpoint, cause us to tune into it because it's a social piece, right?
Yeah, if I hear a voice behind me now, my limbic system is asking me 3 questions. Is that food, sex, or danger?
Yeah.
Right? Is that a sandwich? Is that someone going to club me around the head? Or is that someone I'd like to know? Right?
Something fun, something dangerous, something, I don't know.
Yeah. That sounds like my weekend this week. Anyway, that's another story. The way that all humans are evolutionarily wired, and the way that our limbic system is looking for danger is what is triggering this distraction piece. And in fact, you and I are both sitting here today because our ancestors over the millennia actually evolutionarily got this part of their brain tuned up. The ones that didn't make it. My great-great-great-grandfather and your great-grandfather having a cave beer back in the day, and if someone goes, is that a bear? And we'd be like, we think it is. And he's like, no, I'm just going to go out and look. Never comes back in again. Literally, that's how it happened, right?
So tell us more about the science behind this, because, I look at any sort of data that is presented to be something that is claiming to help ADHD with a healthy degree of skepticism.
And rightly so, yeah.
Right.
We have a white paper that's actually on our site that shows one of the studies. We've done quite a few studies. We haven't actually publicly exposed all of them, but there's an important one that is there on the site. The science really was, you can kind of think of it very simply, that what we're doing is there are 3 standard cognitive tests, and they are for memory, they are for logic, and they are for creativity. And these are used in psych labs all over the world. And so what we were able to do was to run the tests and then get a variety of different people with different neurotypical, brains, and then run the same tests. Either there were 3 controls. There was 1, no music, 1, our music, and 2, their music of choice, whatever you like, but not our music. It was a double-blind study, and the results were super interesting. That, there is a distinct link between your brain type and the kind of music that helps you work or not. Here's the thing, though. 1 person in 3, statistically, cannot listen to any sound at all when they're working.
Okay.
Nothing. They need dead.
Was there a correlation between that with ADHD, or was this in the general population that you studied?
There is actually. There is. It's to do with the bell curve, and it's to do with the fact that there is a link with autism and people who find anything distracting at any time, anywhere, any place.
Okay.
And so then there's the link on the other side of that sort of bell curve of people who they don't care whether there's music there or not. They just prefer none. They can work anywhere. Silence, it doesn't matter to them.
Okay.
So there is a link. It's really interesting. It's 1/3, but it's actually 1/6 and 1/6 at the other end of the.
Okay. So then the 2/3 that having some music on helps.
Yes.
How did that data break out?
Well, it's really interesting. The 2 people out of 3 who try the focus at will system, this is statistically in the general population, one of those people finds this kind of works and they like it, but they're not crazy about it. Yeah, it could work. Yeah, but I'm probably not going to buy this. One person in three, the other one person in three, it becomes a critical part of their daily practice. We've got users now who've been with us for 8 years every time, and so it is that one person.
And just to be clear, these aren't users who signed up 8 years ago and forgot that they ever signed up for it and haven't actually used it, or these
the people who use it. Yeah, out of the couple of million users, we've got about my obsessed user base. These are people who I just always communicating with. There's about 25,000 of us.
Wow.
And this is my test group. And these are the people who are like, if the service, if Amazon has a burp at some point and they're in Australia and the system's not working, I'm going to get a phone call in the middle of the night. So yeah, these are active users.
So does that mean that for a third of all people who, at least that were presented this works really well for?
Yes.
And if you think about it, you could either say, oh, well, only a third of people is this going to work for. But when we think about how much it works for, right, and like what complementary and alternative treatments for ADHD and things that we are setting up in our environment to help manage our ADHD, right? Risk reward for everything. Like, is it what is the 1 year cost? It was like 50 something.
Yeah, $52. Yeah.
$52. Yeah. Right. So what was that, like $5 a month about?
Yeah, we do a monthly at $10 and then it's $50 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we go into companies, and we have there's an enterprise option on the website, and we get something very consistent back. If we go I went into a business called Left Field Labs just last month. They're an ad agency here and a marketing ad agency in LA. They have just over 100 employees, and they tested the system out. And what usually happens when that happens is about 20%, 25% of the people who are working tend to use this. So about 1 person in 5 in the company. So I know the CEO of Left Field Labs, Akash, and I called him up and I said, could you do me a favor? Who are the 20%? What do they do? Right. So if this works 20% of your staff, and he called me back later laughing, he goes, oh, this 20% is the important. These are my most productive, most highly paid, most capable, most important, most highly distracted employees. This represents 80% of my payroll. So that's the pitch. I'm like, okay, so the 20% of your company who are your that's 80% of your payroll. This works really well for these guys, these people.
Nice.
Interesting, right?
So what I would like to do is take one more quick break here. When we come back, I'm actually really interested in sort of like the music creation sort of part to this. So we'll talk about that, and I'm sure some other things as well when we come back. So we will be right back. Support for this podcast comes from ADHD Rewired's virtual co-working community, Adult Study Hall. Over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be using our Adult Study Hall 24/7 Zoom room a lot to work on my presentation for this year's virtual international conference on ADHD, which is coming up November 4th through 6th. Which, by the way, if you want to attend, I actually was able to get listeners of this podcast a special 25% off discount that you can get by going to ADHDrewired.com/ADHDcon. It's ADHDCON. Come work with me on whatever you need to do. Whether you need to get some deep work done or you have a bunch of tasks that you need to do but you're struggling to do, go to adultstudyhall.com and get started with us. Join other adults with ADHD and get motivated to tackle your to-do lists or whatever else you've been putting off. That's right, grab your to-do list and join the ADHD-friendly co-working community built just for us. But if you need some structure with your work, we'll help you get started there too. Your membership will also include access to all of our ASH Plus sessions. ASH, by the way, is Adult Study Hall. Plus means it is facilitated and themed. These are the sessions where you can check in on your progress and talk through what it is that you are working on. We have cleaning and decluttering sessions, we have writing sessions, we have a task busters session, we have a job search focused session, we have exercise sessions, and more is on the way. You can see all of our ASH Plus sessions, including the dates and times that we offer them, by going to adultstudyhall.com. And it doesn't stop there. We are continuing to add more ASH Plus sessions so you can have more opportunities to join a facilitated session. Your membership to Adult Study Hall gives you access to all of our current and upcoming ASH Plus sessions and our ASH 24/7 room for only $19.99 a month. Did I mention that the first week is completely free? Jump in and join us by going to adultstudyhall.com. I know to-do lists are hard and acting on them can be even harder. And that is why this ADHD-friendly co-working community is here, so we don't have to tackle our toughest to-dos alone. What are you waiting for? Join this wonderful community full of adults with ADHD who just get it. The website again is adultstudyhall.com. That's adultstudyhall.com. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from our patrons who give over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. I want to thank Roberta M. this week for becoming a patron. Thank you so much for your support. Support for the show starts at any amount, with perks for our patrons starting at just $5 a month, where you can get ad-free episodes of this show right in your podcast player. Then for $25 a month, you can join me and a small group of other patrons every fourth Tuesday of the month. Our next patron-only group coaching call is on Tuesday, September 28th at 3 p.m. Central. That's 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. If you're a patron giving at the $25 a month level, don't forget to add these to your calendar. We'd love to see you there. Many of our patrons give simply because they believe in the work we are doing. Support starts at any amount, and I am so grateful for all of our members over on Patreon. Your support is continuing to help me grow my team and has helped us over at ADHD Rewired grow and reach so many more people with ADHD. And our hope is that when listeners like you tune into our podcast, that they don't feel alone. Truly, all of your support is very much appreciated, and thank you for helping us grow and reach people with ADHD everywhere. Join our Patreon community. Perks start at just $5 a month for ad-free episodes. $25 a month gets you a seat at our monthly coaching calls, and $10 a month can get you an audio recording right on your podcast player for those coaching calls. Otherwise, support can start at any amount that you choose. If you love this show and you want to support what we are doing at ADHD Rewired and you're able to show your support financially, head on over to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. That's ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. All right, we are back with Will Henshall of Focus at Will. All right, so take me to the music lab. Like, how do you create this?
Well, I have an acoustic guitar right here.
All right, we're going to get serenaded. Here we go.
So if I have a guitar tuned like this, and if I'm playing, it happens to be tuned in a... Now, here are just some chords. Now, if I was actually going to be playing a song, you'd expect the chords to be like... Right, you'd expect to hear something and then a vocal go, right? But what we do in Focus at Will is we're about creating a mood, a feeling, a vibe. So what we might do is something like this. If we have an acoustic guitar channel,
something that kind of invites you in.
Now I'm just making that up as I'm sitting here. You can see what I'm doing is I'm creating a sonic sort of soundscape that doesn't really go anywhere, but it does go somewhere. It just keeps, it's music for your non conscious mind.
Would you say that it's always going towards resolving itself, but never quite does?
Exactly.
Hmm.
It nearly resolves. Now, I mentioned before, we've got this channel called NatureBeat. And NatureBeat is the first channel. There's a lot of music on the NatureBeat channel, and it is actually my personal artistic endeavor. And it is music which is somewhere between the drop. It's like up tempo, low tempo. I can see you're just about to do something.
I am. Let's see. It's funny, 'cause I think there was just thunder, and I wasn't sure if that was NatureBeat or if that was thunder.
So NatureBeat always starts with about a minute if you let it run.
Okay. I just like this.
Mm-hmm. There's a minute of just sequencer.
So now what's that drone sound in the background?
Very important. Your non-conscious mind will pay some attention to that. This is just one of the NatureBeat tracks. There are many on here. The NatureBeat tracks are all 25 minutes. And there are delays running. These delays are very carefully timed. There's an implied pulse. And then there are multiples on that implied pulse. These pulses are entraining your brain in a very specific speed, typically between 8.1 and 8.9 hertz times a second. So as the track builds, it's like diving you deeper into focus.
Mm.
Tracks are all 25 minutes long because that is a typical Pomodoro style time. And this is me composing and playing all the stuff in my studio.
How much of this stuff are you just improvising?
None of it. It's all very consciously created.
Wow.
There's one called NatureBeat 9.
What is it called?
Number 9. They've all got numbers, all the pieces.
Okay.
And there's a lot of repetition. But the repetition changes. It goes towards the resolving. Something else about this as a musician, the bass part is in 3/4, but the track is in 4/4.
I think some of the bands that I like the best do that kind of stuff where they're like where the bass and the drums and the guitar, they're not in the same time sequence, but they like always catch up to each other. Like
that's what happens here. Every 12 notes, they all line up again.
Huh. So this, we're listening to the NatureBeat. I have it set at medium energy.
Mm-hmm. On 20 beats per minute. With an implied entrainment of about 8.5 hertz. So there's 8.5.
Explain what entrainment means for people that might not know what that means.
Have you ever seen someone pick up a guitar? I'm actually going to show you this.
Okay.
Here's a guitar, right? And if I play this note, I can hold my guitar and go, hey, and the guitar is gonna play that note because it is sympathetically resonating with the note that I am singing. It's a known effect. So strings sympathetically resonate with sounds that make the strings happen. You can do this on a piano. If you sit by any piano, put the sustain pedal down so that all the notes ring, and then just sing some stuff into the piano, and you will hear the strings resonating sympathetically with what you're playing. So your brain does the same thing. All of our brains do.
And when we talk about like brain entrainment, I was kind of curious about this many years ago about this sort of brain entrainment technology where you put on stereo headphones and like one on like the right side is the frequency is slightly adjusted from the left side, and so it creates this like third beat, which then your brain then like sort of latches onto, right? The binaural beats.
Here's the skinny about binaural beats. They generally don't work for most people.
Yeah,
it's a marketing. It's more of the
it's so funny too because like I used to have those sleep phones, which are like those fleece headphones that are comfortable to sleep in. And anytime I would use that, what I would find is that as soon as my eyes start closing, I would have like really big like body like muscle twitches, and I was like, "Oh, something's probably happening." Like I don't know what it is, but no, I just found that sort of interesting. So this isn't that.
No, this is not this. We have found that sounds that have a sharp attack, like a hi-hat or a sound, or a sequence that's going or a guitar that's playing dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, those attack sounds trigger the brain into a specific state. And I've talked about hertz. So there's alpha, beta, delta. There are different types of brain waves. And just to kind of keep this very sort of understandable, the brain waves that you need when you're focusing and concentrate are primarily alpha waves. And alpha waves are the dominant frequency in your brain between about 8 and 14 hertz. That is clicks per second. So if you can find music that is triggering this between 8 and 14 times a second, that is why and how this works. Now, there is a link between trance techno music, and the Nature Beat channel is very much based on this. And if you had a misspent youth, you may have spent time at raves, and techno music is digga 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 German techno. Right.
I never got into like, I like electronic music, but if that like over and over, like I can't do it.
Okay. Well, trance music and trance events. There's Arnold Van Buren. There's a bunch of DJs still doing this. What's happening is that the people who are at the event are having their alpha waves triggered, and that is why you have the trance effect, and it is very calming and it is very soothing.
It's not just the drugs that everybody's on.
Well, I've been advised by my lawyer not to discuss that.
So what do you see as the if people are listening to this, they're like, maybe this would work for me. What would you say? Like, what's the pitch to them to give it a try?
Well, go to the website and do the quiz and see what it recommends and see whether that instinctively works for you. It often recommends music you don't like. Why? Well, you don't want music that you like while you're doing this. You actually want music that's going to help your non-conscious attention. This is music for work. I tell people, if you listen to music you like, you love ABBA, you love classic rock, great. But that's like drinking a beer when you're working. Not a good idea. You are distracting yourself. So remember, this is a tool to put on while you're doing something, and then turn it off, and then listen to ABBA and sing along with all the greatest hits when you're driving home from work.
What could somebody maybe ask themselves as a sort of an experimental hypothesis around, like, is this working for me? So they're trying it out. How can they evaluate, is this working?
Well, think about vitamins, supplements of any kind. You take them and hope they're going to work. You have no idea. I think I'm feeling better this week. Do you think it's the vitamins? I don't know. I'm the woo. Here we go again. Right? This is very experiential. You will put this on and you will know really quickly whether this is working, because either you got a lot done today or you did not. And the user base, the folks that will user base are people that this really helps. And in fact, the more you use this, the easier it is for you to get into a focus state. And something that's been fascinating, we just did some research on this. We found people that have been using this for a number of years find that outside of using this, it is helping them being able to focus and concentrate. It is helping train their brain to be able to get stuff done.
Well, Will Henshall, the creator of Focus at Will. The website is focusatwill.com. And you can check it out. And I know there's a 1-week free trial on there. And check it out. Let us know what you think. Throw some comments on our website for this episode. Any other contact information or anything else you want to share?
I love to hear from people who are managing ADHD of any kind and trying to get done. And I'm Will at Focus at Will. Easy to reach. I kind of have an open door policy with our users. So drop me a note, and we'd love to hear from you. And one of the questions I always ask people is, "What a tip? Give me a tip. What are some of your tips?" And in the last month, we've had 3 tips from people with ADHD that have been fascinating. One of them was a guy who said, every time I do an email during the day, I click a counter, like, one of those.
Were you talking to Brendan Mahan? Because I was literally talking to him about that today.
He was talking to you about this.
Yes.
Yeah. You click the button every time you've got it there ahead of you.
A pitch counter. It's this little
click counter. So he gets stuff done.
Yeah.
That was super interesting. The other 2 were from physicians who are users of the system. One of them is a podiatrist, a foot doctor. And he said, make sure that your feet are grounded like at 90 degrees to your ankles when you're square on the floor when you're working. If you're sitting on a stool, what's happening is your feet are probably sitting on one of the support bars or something. And he said it has a profound impact on your typing accuracy. And that had me going, what? And then I tried it and I was like, oh, that's weird, because some days my typing's not good and I just thought it's one of those things. No, because my chair's not in the right position. So check that one, that you're sitting. If you're sitting on a stool, make sure you've got something to put your feet on flat.
I definitely just uncrossed my legs and put my feet on the floor as you were saying that.
And then the third one, which was really fascinating, an eye doctor that used our system said that eye strain is a big problem. And the laptops that we use these days all have built-in automatic adjustments for ambient light, but it doesn't always work very well. And he said, close one eye, look at your screen, and then look outside at the brightest source, either the window or something else, and then look at your computer screen. And if it is like exactly the same, you're good to go. But if it's not, what you need to do is adjust the brightness of your screen so it matches the ambient light. You and I both have video lights here, so I suspect that your screen is not quite bright enough to match the video lights. And I have found by cranking up the brightness on my screen here, now I'm sitting in this room and I don't have to peer and squint. And he said that the cognitive load on your sort of thinking process is like driving the car with a parking brake on. You don't really notice it
until you release it.
Yeah. So keep your feet flat on the floor. Make sure your screen's not too dim or too bright. And then if you're doing emails, I couldn't do that one, but I thought that was interesting. Doing a clicker so that every time you get something done during the day, you feel you've achieved something.
Or, a marble in a jar or something kind of tactile that gives you.
How about a swear jar and you just put a penny in the swear jar?
Got that shit done. Cha-ching.
Here's the other thing. We also found that this isn't another group. I mean, there is a significant link between people who swear a lot, curse a lot, and people with ADHD.
I'm not fully surprised by that. So
I do have one of those on my machine just in case.
I always wonder, like, do the in the studios, is that like a delayed thing? How do they kind of catch it in there in time?
There's a 7-second delay, on broadcast. Absolutely.
Could you imagine being the person that is their sole job to hit that button if somebody swears? Like,
oh yeah, It is a job. It is a real thing, right?
Will Henshall, Focus at Will, thank you so much. I look forward to reusing again, because I just signed up. I've been a member of Focus at Will for many years ago, and then I kind of stopped using it, and now I'm using it again. So thank you. I'm looking forward to the continued use.
Keep me posted how it works for you. And
you bet.
Check out NatureBeat. It's 3 times more people use it than any of the other channels.
All right. Well, let's go to a high energy NatureBeat as we wrap this one up here. This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you're a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Here is my list of must-listen to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired, click the button to be a guest at the top of the page, and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things, and we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.